This is 2517 Choyeon-hee, who's gonna have a presentation about the logical fallacy. Logical fallacy is one of the logical terms which refers to the use of an inappropriate method in constructing an argument or proceeding with an inference. This is largely divided into formal and informal fallacy. Formal fallacies are errors caused by firm, not by the content of the argument, and informal fallacies are errors that result from the use of language in which the presented evidence and conclusions are not logically related to each other. Informal fallacy again is divided into two, one for relevance and one for ambiguity. A fallacy of relevance is an error that connects evidence and conclusions that are not logically related to each other as if they are related. The fallacy of ambiguity is, to put it simply, the fallacy of using the ambiguity of language. Aristotle emphasized the importance of logical fallacy in classical philosophy, and Richard Whately and John Stuart Mill emphasized the importance of logical fallacy in modern philosophy because finding logical fallacies in argument is a criterion for correct reasoning. There are 15 logical fallacies which people often make, and I will gonna have a presentation about those 15. First logical fallacy is an ad hominem fallacy. It occurs when refuting the other person's words, not by speaking against them, but by criticizing them for their personal information. It uses personal attacks rather than the logic like personal characteristics, ethnic background, physical appearance, or other non-relevant traits of the person who holds it. The sentence, "He's wrong because he's drunkard and they didn't graduate the middle school," can be the example of the ad hominem fallacy. Second, there is a strawman argument, which means a logical fallacy that attacks a different subject rather than the topic being discussed, often a more extreme version of the counter-argument. It works as the following step. First, A claims X, second, B distorts X to make a claim Y, and then third, B attacks Y. The purpose of this misdirection is to make one's position look stronger than it actually is. Example can be, some people claim that the logic isn't the most important thing in life. It's clearly a claim of irrationality. They are denying the human achievement of long history. Third, appeal to ignorance. Also known as an argument from ignorance, argues that a proposition must be true because it has not been proven false or there is no evidence against it. An appeal to ignorance doesn't prove anything. Instead, it shifts the need for proof away from the person making a claim. The argument can be used to bolster multiple contradictory conclusions at once, such as the following one example. No one has ever been able to prove that extraterrestrials exist, so they must not be real. Fourth, false dilemma. First dilemma, which presents limited options typically by focusing on two extremes, when in fact more possibilities exist. So the phrase, "America, love it or leave it," is an example of a first dilemma. The first dilemma fallacy is a manipulative tool designed to polarize the audience, promoting the one side and demonizing another. Fifth, slippery slope fallacy. A slippery slope fallacy is a logical fallacy that assumes a certain course of action will necessarily lead to a chain of future events. The slippery slope fallacy takes a benign premise or starting point and suggests that it will lead to unlikely or ridiculous outcomes with no supporting evidence. For example, legalizing prostitution is undesirable because it would cause more marriages to break up, which would in turn cause the breakdown of the family, which would finally result in the destruction of civilization. Sixth, circular argument. Circular arguments occur when a person's argument repeats what they already assumed before without arriving at a new conclusion. It occurs when the premise presumes, openly or covertly, the very conclusion that is to be demonstrated. For example, 18-year-olds have the right to vote because it's illegal for them to vote. 7. Hasty generalization. A hasty generalization is a claim based on a few examples rather than substantial proof. Arguments based on hasty generalizations often don't hold up due to a lack of supporting evidence. The claim might be true in one case, but that doesn't mean it's always true. Hasty generalizations are common in arguments because there's a wide range of what's acceptable for sufficient evidence. For example, pizza and french fries are healthy because my brother who eats it a lot is healthy. 8. Red herring fallacy. A red herring fallacy is an argument that uses confusion or distraction to shift attention away from a topic and toward a false conclusion. Red herring usually contain an unimportant fact, idea, or event that has little relevance to the real issue. Red herrings are a common diversionary tactic when someone wants to shift the focus of an argument to something easier or safer to address, but it can also be unintentional. For example, I know you don't want me to borrow the car, but I was going to pick up coffee for you. Don't you love coffee can be an example for red herring fallacy. 9th, appeal to hypocrisy. An appeal to hypocrisy focuses on the hypocrisy of an opponent. It deflects criticism away from oneself by accusing the other person of the same problem or something comparable. It is an attempt to divert blame. For example, A says, stop running so many stop signs, and B says, you run them all the time, can be the example for the appeal to hypocrisy. 10th, casual fallacy. Casual fallacies are informal fallacies that occur when an argument incorrectly concludes that a case is still related to an effect. Think of a casual fallacy as a parent category for other fallacies about unproven cases. For example, every time I wash my car, it rains can be the example. 11th, a fallacy of sunk costs. A sunk cost fallacy is when someone continues doing something because of the effort they already put it in, regardless of whether the additional cost outweigh the potential benefits. Sunk cost is an economic term for any past expenses that can no longer be recovered. For example, I've already invested lots of money, I'm not stopping here. 12th, appeal to authority. Appeal to authority is the misuse of an authority's opinion to support an argument. While an authority's opinion can represent evidence and data, it becomes a fallacy if their expertise or authority is overstated, illegitimated, or irrelevant to the topic. For example, it's a faithful food because athlete Michael Jordan loves it. 13th, equivocation. Equivocation happens when a word, phrase, or sentence is usually deliberately to confuse, deceive, or mislead. In other words, saying one thing but meaning another. When it's a poetic or comical, we call this a play on words, but when it's done in a political speech or an ethics debate or an economics report, and it's designed to make the audience think you're saying something you're not, that's when it becomes a fallacy. For example, I have the right to watch the real world, therefore it's right for me to watch the show. 14th, appeal to pity. An appeal to pity relies on provoking your emotions to win an argument rather than the factual evidence. Appealing to pity attempts to pull on an audience's heartstrings, distract them, and support their point of view. For example, you need to pass me in this course since I will lose my scholarship if you don't. 15th, the last one, bandwagon fallacy. A bandwagon fallacy is a logical fallacy that assumes something is true because others agree with it. One problem with this kind of reasoning is that the broad acceptance of a claim or action doesn't mean that it's factually justified. People can be mistaken, confused, deceived, or even willfully irrational in their opinions, so using them to make an argument is flawed. For example, that product will be a good choice because everyone does can be the example of bandwagon fallacy. So as a conclusion, this school is a school with a lot of debates, and even my club is a debate club, so I have a lot of opportunities of debate. I think I can be in a more advantageous position when having debate by learning the 15 kinds of logical fallacies. Thank you.